My name is Ethan. I'm 46 years old, and for 8 years I've lived inside someone else's unfinished story. The house in Fort Collins is quiet most days. It sits on a street where everyone smiles politely, waters their grass at dawn, and parks their cars at perfect angles. It's the kind of place that looks peaceful from the outside. Vinyl siding, solar panels, flags on porches. But peace can be a performance like anything else. Megan was 36 when we met. Her smile was wide, but her shoulders were tired. She carried the weariness of someone who had learned not to expect help. 2 children, 11 years old. Lily and Noah, fraternal twins. Their father, Anthony, had moved to Arizona the year before. Started over. New job, new girlfriend, new version of himself that didn't require school pickups or orthodontist bills. He made guest appearances. The occasional flight in December, a photo for social media, a Venmo payment with a heart emoji. He sent gifts, always late, always expensive. Once, when Lily turned 13, he sent her a vintage Polaroid camera with a note that read, "Capture everything." She opened it while I was fixing the garbage disposal. She never thanked me for the new dress I had picked up for her party, or the chocolate cake I drove across town to get from the bakery she liked. But I didn't need gratitude. That's not what this is about. Not yet. I was the one who stayed. Not because I wanted praise, but because permanence is the only thing that ever made sense to me. If I show up, I stay. If I commit, I finish. That's how I've always lived. So when I moved in, I moved all the way in. I took over the school forms. I scheduled appointments. I sat in the back row at dance recitals and held Lily's coat during costume changes. I taught Noah how to tie a tie for his school debate. I built furniture, fixed leaks, ran to Walgreens at 11 p.m. for cough syrup. I bought them phones when theirs broke. Paid for repairs when they didn't admit they'd dropped them. Megan worked part-time at a nonprofit and kept her name on every contact form. But when the school nurse called or the carpool bailed, it was my number they used. I didn't fight for it. I just became the default. The steady hand. The man behind the curtain making everything run on time. I never told them to call me Dad. I didn't care about titles. All I ever wanted was to be solid. The person they could depend on. And in some ways, I convinced myself I had become that. I tracked everything, not because I planned to use it as a weapon, but because that's how my brain works. I have folders on my hard drive labeled Lily School, Noah Medical, College Savings, receipts scanned and categorized, passwords encrypted. I knew the balance of every account, the due date of every bill. I managed the household like a business, not because it was cold, but because it was the only way I knew how to provide love that couldn't be misunderstood. Love, for me, was never about words. It was presence, reliability, paying for things before anyone noticed they were needed, anticipating disaster and neutralizing it. In time, it started to feel like a structure, like a house with invisible scaffolding, mine, holding everything up while everyone else lived comfortably beneath it. And then, one evening, something shifted. I was running late. Megan knew I had a late client call, but things ran over. I was still downtown when the sun started dipping. I called her from the car to let her know I'd be home soon, that I'd pick up dinner on the way. She answered after the second ring. I still remember the sound of her voice. Distracted, half present. The way you answer someone when you're in the middle of something else, when you're trying to sound polite without fully giving your attention. In the background, I could hear the muffled hum of the television. Some reality show Lily liked, voices rising and falling in synthetic arguments. Then I heard it. Not loud, not intentional, just a sentence dropped in the middle of a breath. "He's just here for now." That's what she said. It wasn't addressed to me. She was talking to someone else. Maybe Lily, maybe herself. But I heard it as clear as anything. 5 words, casual and damning. He's just here for now. I didn't say anything. I didn't even breathe. My knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. I pulled into the Walgreens parking lot and sat there for a full minute before hanging up. Could have meant nothing. Could have been a misheard phrase, a throwaway comment. But I knew the difference. I knew the weight of things said when someone thinks you're not listening. That's when the truth slips out. And I wasn't the only one who heard it. Lily was standing nearby. I know because when I walked through the door an hour later, she didn't greet me. She didn't roll her eyes or sigh like she normally did. She just walked past me. Slowly, deliberately, like I was furniture. Her eyes had changed. There was something hard in them. Cold. Not hatred, not even anger, just clarity. The kind that comes when someone has finally accepted a story they've wanted to believe all along. That I wasn't permanent. That I was something to use, not something to trust. Something borrowed. That night, we ate dinner in the living room. Megan said nothing about the call. Noah was buried in his laptop. Lily scrolled through her phone, occasionally smirking at something on the screen, never looking up. I watched them all, saying nothing. The silence in that room was louder than any argument we'd ever had. After they went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Not to work, not really. I just stared at the folders I'd built. The spreadsheets, the savings projections, the college tuition calculations I'd been running for 2 years. The ones that included out-of-state options, art programs, dorm estimates, insurance policies, travel budgets. All of it based on a future where I mattered. Suddenly, I saw the shape of it. How everything I'd built depended on an illusion. That I belonged here. That my presence was foundational. But if Megan could say I was just here for now, what did that mean for everything I had invested? It meant it was conditional, temporary, disposable. And if I was temporary, then so was the life I had been funding. That night, I didn't confront Megan. I didn't ask her to explain the sentence. There was nothing to explain. The damage had already been done. You don't unhear something like that. You don't explain it away without insult. Instead, I made a decision. A quiet one. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that waits. If I was just here for now, then maybe it was time to stop building for later. Weeks passed. Quiet ones. No arguments, no shouting, no slammed doors. Just the usual rhythm of a house that had learned to hum along without asking questions. I still drove Noah to his early morning robotics class on Saturdays. Still packed Lily's dance shoes when she forgot them. Still paid the gas bill. Replaced the cracked tiles in the upstairs bathroom. Mowed the lawn when it grew uneven. But something in me had shifted. Before, I would calculate tuition costs with a sense of investment. Now I looked at them like invoices for someone else's dream. When Megan mentioned college visits, I nodded, but I didn't volunteer to research airfare or drive the rental. I stopped updating the shared calendar. The future, once something I planned for like a craftsman shaping wood, now felt like a room I had already left. The sentence haunted me, he's just here for now. It echoed in small moments. Lily turning her face slightly when I kissed her forehead. Noah locking his door more than usual. Megan brushing my hand off her waist when I tried to touch her while she cooked. Every gesture, every silence, every half-smile that didn't reach the eyes. They all added weight to the truth I'd heard that night. I didn't bring it up. I didn't accuse. That would have made it seem like I was trying to regain something, like I still believed the center of this family had room for me. Instead, I became precise. I reviewed our accounts. There were 3 joint savings accounts I had created for college, emergencies, and long-term renovations. I closed them all. Transferred my portion into a private account. The rest was Megan's, and I left it untouched. Let her see what she'd contributed. Let her see what I had. Then I called the accountant and paused every automatic contribution tied to future expenses, the 529 plans, the mutual funds for the kids, the automatic draft for the future kitchen remodel. I told him to freeze everything tied to a long-term horizon. We're shifting priorities, I said. He didn't ask questions. That's why I'd kept him for so long. I started buying cheaper groceries. No one noticed. I skipped the expensive shampoo Noah liked. Didn't renew Lily's subscription box. When she asked about it, I said, "Not in the budget this month." And she looked at me like I had spoken in code. Megan said nothing. Maybe she assumed I was just getting tighter with money. Maybe she thought I was waiting for some acknowledgement, some apology. But I wasn't. I wasn't angry. Anger implies you still want something to change. This was different. This was the slow quiet of detachment. The calm that follows once you realize the thing you've been holding on to doesn't need you, and never did. The conversations shifted. Or rather, they continued without me. One night at dinner, Lily brought up a private design school in New York. Something about an accelerated fashion track, dorms in Manhattan, internship credits. Megan lit up like a lantern. "We'll make it happen," she said, without even looking at me. "We" was a new word. Or maybe it always meant her and the kids. I just hadn't noticed. I reached for my glass and took a sip. Didn't say a word. Then Noah chimed in. "I think I'll go out to California after graduation. Just get some space, figure things out. Maybe community college or something for a bit, maybe tech." Megan nodded like it was a weather update. "You should go where you feel free." Then they all looked at me, expecting a comment. Plan. Numbers. That was always my role. The navigator. The one with the budgets and spreadsheets and backup plans. So I gave them what they wanted, but not in the way they expected. "I can walk you through the costs," I said. "It'll be a lot: flights, deposits, housing. And if the scholarships don't come through." Lily interrupted, calm and flat. "I think that's between Mom and me." She didn't even blink. Didn't soften it with a smile. She just took the conversation and drew a boundary around it. One that excluded me completely. Noah didn't back her up, but his silence was confirmation. Not surprise. Not concern. Just quiet alignment. I looked at Megan. She looked down at her plate. That was the moment. The final, invisible shift. The end didn't come with a scream. It came with a quiet dismissal. A reorganization of reality, right there at the table. So I nodded. And I made the decision I had been circling for weeks. From that night on, I stopped building. Not out of spite. Not to prove a point. But because I finally understood the rules. If I was just here for now, then I would live accordingly. No more planning for futures that didn't include me. No more funding dreams where I was nothing more than a silent sponsor. I was done planting seeds in someone else's field. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Made coffee. Paid the bills, the immediate ones. Food, electricity, the basics. I left the tuition drafts canceled. Left the long-term investments paused. I didn't explain anything. If they noticed, they'd notice in time. And if they didn't, well, that told its own story. At breakfast, Megan was reading emails. She didn't look up. Lily was already out the door. Noah wandered in late. Mumbled something about needing gas money. I handed him a 20. No questions. No lectures. Let them feel the floor shift gradually. Let the scaffolding disappear without ceremony. At work, I stayed late. I picked up extra shifts. Not because we needed the money, but because I liked how it felt to be needed again somewhere. To exist in a space where effort was recognized. Evenings at home became quieter. The kids talked less around me. Megan started taking her wine upstairs after dinner. I kept doing the basics: laundry, garbage, dishes. I didn't stop being useful. I just stopped being essential. And no one said a word. That was the part that struck me the most. Not the disrespect. Not even the dismissal. But the ease with which they accepted my withdrawal. As if I had never really been part of the equation in the first place. Lily came home one night, threw her bag on the couch, and asked Megan if the check for the college tour had cleared. I was 5 feet away. Neither of them looked at me. I stood up, walked into my office, and closed the door. On my desk was a folder labeled Q4 2025 Plans. It used to contain everything: vacation itineraries, savings targets, ideas for Noah's graduation trip, options for a new car Megan had mentioned in passing. I deleted it. Every file. Every document. Then I shut the laptop. There was a strange satisfaction in that. Not joy. Not revenge. Just stillness. The kind that comes when you stop rowing and finally let the current carry you. Megan came in later, stood in the doorway. "Hey," she said. I looked up. She hesitated. "You've been quiet." I waited. "Is everything okay?" I smiled. "Everything's fine." She nodded slowly. Left the room. That was the last time she asked. The bills came due in pieces. Not all at once, that would have been too clean. No, it came the way rot comes in an old house. Quietly from beneath. Slow enough to ignore, fast enough to ruin everything if you pretend it isn't there. At first, they didn't notice. The kids still came and went. Megan still made coffee in the morning, still kissed me goodbye before leaving for work. If anything had shifted, it was only visible to me, and maybe that was the cruelest part. That I could be retreating inch by inch and no one could tell. The tuition drafts had been canceled. The college fund emptied on my side. The contributions halted. I left Megan's half intact, the accounts we'd opened in both our names. The balances now looked like they were on life support. But I said nothing. The assumption still hung in the air. Ethan will handle it. He always has. That's how it works, doesn't it? You become invisible, but you're expected to stay functional. A ghost with a wallet. Then came the school counselor. I got the voicemail on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in a parking lot, eating lunch in my truck, engine off. The counselor's voice was warm but edged with practiced urgency. "Hi, Mr. Caldwell. This is Ms. Enright from Fort Collins High. I wanted to check in about some recent scholarship paperwork that's missing. I've been trying to connect with Megan, but I thought maybe you could help fast-track a response? It's regarding Lily's portfolio submission and some projected tuition support information that we usually confirm around this time." I didn't call back. That same day, Megan forwarded me an email without a subject line. It was from the university Lily had applied to in New York. They wanted to confirm the funding structure. The email was short, clinical. A request for documentation, nothing more. I stared at it for a while. Then I deleted it. 2 days later, Megan asked, offhand, "Did you see that thing from NYD? They need the breakdown of who's covering what for tuition." I nodded. "Yep. Did you send them the form?" "No." She blinked. "Why not?" "Because I'm not covering anything." Her mouth opened slightly, but she didn't respond. Just looked at me like she hadn't heard me right. Then she went upstairs. That was the first crack. The next came when Noah's school sent a fee schedule for his summer courses. Early enrollment in an online coding program. Something he'd been excited about for weeks. Megan called me into the kitchen, paper in hand. "This is for Noah's course," she said. I glanced at it. "It's pricey." "Yeah. But you said you wanted him to do it." "I did," I said. "Back when I was part of the decision-making." Her jaw tensed. "You are part of it." "No," I said, pouring coffee. "I was. But decisions were made without me. So are the payments." She didn't argue. Just stood there for a long time, holding that paper like it might answer for me. 3 days passed. Then Lily got the call from the university. They needed confirmation of financial support, or her application would be placed on hold. She stood in the hallway, staring at the wall while she talked, saying things like, "I thought that was already submitted," and "I'll ask again." That night, she didn't speak to me. Noah asked me for gas money the next morning. I said I didn't have cash. He muttered something under his breath. I didn't ask him to repeat it. At dinner, Megan finally asked, "What's going on with you?" She said. Her voice was flat, tired. "I've just stopped investing in things I'm excluded from." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Is this about that one conversation?" "Ethan, don't," I said. "Don't pretend it was one moment. It was a summary." She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "So what? You're just not going to support them anymore? That's your plan?" "I'm supporting them. I'm supporting the present. Food, shelter, clothes, gas, electricity. What about college? Not my decision. Not my responsibility." Megan stared at me. "You were the one who pushed for those college funds in the first place." "Yeah," I said. "Back when I thought I was part of the future." Silence. She looked at the kids. They were frozen too. No one touched their plates after that. Later that night, Noah slipped a stack of forms under my office door. Health insurance updates. Emergency contact updates. He didn't say anything, but he didn't need to. I filled them out, left the rest blank. Wrote my name only where it was legally required. The days got tighter. Megan started watching the bank accounts. She never said it, but I noticed the way she checked the shared app more often. Her brows furrowed. The grocery budget shrank. The extras, yoga classes, streaming services, the landscaping guy started disappearing. Quiet subtractions just like mine. One night, I heard Lily on the phone in the bathroom. She thought the door was shut tight. She was crying. I didn't listen. I just walked to the kitchen, poured a drink, and stared at the fridge where the college acceptance letter had been pinned weeks ago. It looked like a relic now, like a prophecy written in someone else's hand. The next afternoon, a box from a coffee shop showed up at the door. Inside was a uniform, Lily's name tag. She had taken a job. Megan didn't mention it. Neither did I. A week later, Noah asked if we had any extra boxes. Said he was delivering for a local service now. Said he needed gas money to get started. I gave him $20. Cash. Nothing more. Plans began to contract. College in New York became community college nearby. Figuring things out in California became maybe taking a gap year and saving up. No one said what we all knew. The foundation was gone. The invisible net that caught every fall had been rolled up and put away. The house became quieter, more polite. The kids stopped asking for things. Stopped including me in conversations entirely. Megan stopped asking when I'd come to bed. One night, she walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Found the takeout I'd bought for myself. She stared at it like it was a message. "You used to bring food for all of us," she said. "You used to speak for all of us," I replied. She didn't answer. That's when I knew. She finally understood. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't revenge. This was structure. A recalibration. You say I'm temporary. I believe you. You say I don't belong in the room where plans are made. I stay out. You say I'm not needed for the future. I stop building one. A week later, Megan got another call. Lily's university. She took it in the backyard. I saw her shoulders slump through the window. She came in quietly, didn't speak for the rest of the night. And then something strange. Noah asked me to drive him to the DMV. Said he needed a state ID. For work, for forms, for being seen. It was a simple ride. No music. No conversation. But as we pulled into the lot, he cleared his throat. "I'm putting you down as my emergency contact." I nodded. "Okay," I said. No apology. No warmth. But the arrogance was gone. It wasn't healing. It wasn't redemption. It was just reality, settling into the cracks we had all ignored. A year later, everything looked the same on the outside. The house still stood, beige siding, black shutters, the same front porch where we'd taken pictures on the first day of school, birthdays, holidays. The yard was still cut once a week. The bills were paid. The lights worked. No foreclosure sign. No missing roof shingles. Nothing a neighbor would notice. But inside, it was quieter. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. Not the kind you get when everyone is content, reading in separate rooms. This was the kind that follows after something breaks. Not with a bang, but a long, slow unraveling. The kind that leaves you unsure if the absence you feel is grief or relief. Lily enrolled at the state university. Commuted from home. No dorms, no design program in New York, no monthly rent wired across the country. She took general education courses, psych, English, history, the kind of classes you take when you're no longer sure who's paying or where you're headed. She kept the coffee shop job. I saw her uniform on the dryer every few days. Always folded, never spoken about. Noah took a job delivering packages full-time. Said he might go back to school later. Said he liked the money. He started paying for his own gas, his own phone bill, eventually his own insurance. He asked me for help once, not money, but advice on deductibles. I gave him the answer. He nodded, mumbled thanks, walked out of the room. That was the shape of things now. Civil, functional, stripped of illusion. Megan, she never apologized. Not directly, but the way she looked at me changed. The way she moved through the house, careful, muted, said everything. Her silence had always been a passive weapon, but now it cut both ways. She couldn't defend what she had allowed. She couldn't undo the words I had heard, so she stopped trying. At night, we lay in the same bed but faced different walls. I didn't leave. People expect that part, that once the bond is broken, the man packs a bag and walks out into the night. But I didn't need to leave. I had already withdrawn from everything that mattered. Physically, I remained. Financially, I contributed to the present. But emotionally, structurally, I had exited the foundation. And they knew it. That was the punishment. And the lesson. They learned what life without assumptions feels like. They learned that security isn't unconditional, not when it's funded by someone they see as disposable. They learned that respect is not ornamental. It's structural. One night, late in the fall, I was in the kitchen making tea. The house was dim, just the stove light on. I heard footsteps. Lily. She moved slowly. Like someone approaching a closed door she wasn't sure she was allowed to open. She poured herself water from the fridge, then lingered. I didn't speak. After a moment, she looked at me. I didn't understand what words do to people back then, she said. That was it. I nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't speak. There was nothing to add. She was trying. Maybe. Or maybe she just wanted to clear her conscience before moving on. But some things don't rewind. They only echo. She left the kitchen. The tea steeped. I stood there, staring at the kettle. The truth is, I don't hate them. I never did. What I felt was deeper than hate. It was disappointment turned inward. A kind of ache that comes from realizing you were never really inside the thing you thought you were building. That you mistook labor for love. That you confused silence for approval. And that was my fault. I believed that presence would be enough. That showing up day after day, paying, fixing, holding, that those things would be seen. That loyalty and sacrifice would one day open the door to belonging. But they don't. Not always. Some families are built on blood and never expand. Some walls don't make room for outsiders, no matter how long you lean against them. So I stopped leaning. I started living like a tenant, not an architect. I repaired what broke, but I stopped adding square footage. I kept the heat on, but I stopped decorating for winter. I paid the bills, but I no longer called it my home. It's amazing how quickly people adapt. They stopped asking me about the future. They started asking Megan. When Lily's car needed tires, Megan took her to the shop. When Noah's tax forms came, he sat at the table alone with Google. When they talked about next year or summer or the future, I wasn't in the room. Sometimes physically, more often just in spirit. And that's when it hit me. They had finally accepted me on their terms. Invisible, reliable, replaceable. And I had accepted them on mine. Civil, independent, contained. We had become what they always believed we were, separate systems, overlapping only where required. The family portrait remained. On the mantle, taken years ago, everyone smiling. It looked real. But like most pictures, it captured only the surface. Beneath it was the story I carry. A man builds a house not to be thanked, but to be part of something. When the house decides he's not part of it, the man doesn't burn it down. He just puts down the hammer. So here's what I know now. Presence without respect is servitude. Sacrifice without recognition is extraction. And family without acceptance is just a contract waiting to expire. I lived for years believing that consistency would earn me belonging. Didn't, but it earned me clarity. And with clarity comes peace. Not joy, not love, not redemption, just peace. The quiet understanding that I gave what I could, and when it became clear that I was only temporary, I lived accordingly. No bitterness, no revenge, just absence. That was the consequence. That was the lesson. So now I ask, was I wrong? Was I cruel to withdraw what was never truly accepted? Was I heartless for refusing to fund futures that I was never invited into? Or did I do what any man would do once he saw the truth? You tell me, would you have endured it? Would you still be paying?